everyone, let's jump right into this really fascinating explainer where we're going to completely strip away religious labels and look at the actual physics and geometry of morality. We're going to examine some incredibly deep source material today that treats ethics not just as some set of cultural preferences, but as a quantifiable mathematical grid. Here is our paradigm-shifting roadmap for today. 1. The universal greater good. 2. The math of morality. 3. The meaning of Israel. And 4. Vector over label. Let's just dive right in. Okay, so I want to start with a question that might actually cause a bit of immediate cognitive dissonance right off the bat. Can a staunch anti-theist actually be closer to God than a devoted believer? Hang in there with me for a second, because according to the structural physics we're analyzing today, the math behind this is absolutely stunning. This quote really beautifully breaks down Karl Rahner's concept of the anonymous Christian. The source material points out that if a religious institution becomes tyrannical or extractive and an atheist fights it, well, that atheist is fighting for objective moral truth, because God is essentially the supreme mathematician of reality. The rebel who is dismantling a corrupted system is doing highly productive work for the greater good, while the bureaucrats running the rot are actually the ones generating chaos. Listen, you don't even have to be a believer here. You can literally be a staunch anti-theist and still agree on some imaginary, idealized figure representing an eternal strive towards the greater good. It's all about moving toward the ideal of everyone getting along with everyone. Moving to section 1, the universal greater good, reframing the absolute. To really grasp this, we need to treat the word God as a pointer variable. In computer science, a pointer variable just points to a location in memory. The source texts argue that if we view God as a pointer variable representing an eternal striving toward the greater good, again, that ideal of everyone just getting along with everyone, then suddenly the battle lines totally change. Einstein believed in Spinoza's God, the God of natural law, and he was called both an atheist and a theist depending entirely on who was looking at him. The territory, the deep causal structure of reality, is exactly the same regardless of the label you happen to use to freeze it. So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. The label does zero work. The scope declaration does all the work. Your self-assigned religious badge or your secular anti-theist label ultimately means nothing to the underlying physics of reality. What actually matters is your directional alignment. Are you moving toward that objective truth of systemic justice and universal benefit, or are you moving away from it? Which brings us to section 2, the math of morality, mapping the moral tensor. Now imagine plotting your own ethical coordinates on a literal grid. On the horizontal axis, we have Epsilon. This is the benefit or morality axis. It essentially asks who benefits, going from negative, meaning just me, to positive, meaning everyone. The vertical axis is psi, the will or activity axis. It asks how much energy are you applying, from negative, passive neglect, all the way up to positive, active creation. Now, if you have positive will and positive benefit, boom, you're in the greater good. But, and this is a big but, if you have high energy, high will, but it's entirely selfish, a negative epsilon, you're operating in what's called the greatest lie. You might genuinely think you're saving the world, but you're actually just building an ego-driven empire. When we strip it all down, it simply comes down to whether you hold faith in the idea of an eternally good being or system. It purely boils down to optimism versus pessimism. An optimist is an order vector. You are actively applying energy to expand the possibility space, really pushing toward continuous systemic improvement. A pessimist, on the other hand, is a chaos vector. You are actively contracting possibilities, hoarding resources out of survival panic, and generating entropy. Faith is simply optimism quantified in action. All right, section 3, the meaning of Israel, a linguistic case study. Let's look at a brilliant historical example to ground this. Let's reverse engineer the ancient source code of the Hebrew word Israel. We find it literally translates to one who struggles or wrestles with God. The text points out that this describes a very dynamic state of friction. But here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. It all comes down to the concept of Israel and whether you struggle against God or with God. See, you can struggle with reality in two totally different ways. First, you can struggle against reality. This is the chaos vector. This is when our biological hardware wrestles aggressively against the absolute blueprint purely out of ego, generating catastrophic systemic friction. Or you can struggle alongside reality, the order vector. This is extreme kinetic labor. It's doing the grueling proactive work of forcibly aligning a corrupted, broken environment with the flawless parameters of the greater good. You are literally fighting alongside reality to fix the world. The sources strongly emphasize that inheriting a name or a title absolutely does not guarantee your vector.
The name is a functional specification. Think of it like an instruction manual for what the entity is actually for. Just because someone wears the label of a believer or claims the name of a movement doesn't actually mean they are operating on the correct side of that struggle. They might just be struggling against the greater good while wearing the jersey of the righteous.
And finally, Section 4, Vector over Label, Navigating Possibility Time Space. Let's map these positions out in your real everyday life. You and I, we are navigating possibility time space. Good is a net expansion of available futures for humanity. Bad is a contraction, just sort of letting things decay by neglect. Evil isn't some spooky mystical force. It's actively, intentionally closing possibilities for others before their time. But saintly? The saintly position is actively holding the possibility space open under immense, crushing pressure that is trying to force it closed. If you remember only one thing from this entire explainer today, make it this. Morality is not a static category. It is a direction. It is a vector. Your moral worth isn't a badge you wear. It's not a religious or secular group you belong to, and it's certainly not the label you put in your social media bio. It is the active, quantifiable trajectory you are traveling on, that grid we looked at earlier. So are you expanding the future or are you contracting it? So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to help you evaluate your own coordinates. Forget the labels for just a second. Ask yourself right now, are you currently struggling against reality just to protect your own ego? Or are you doing the hard, kinetic work of struggling alongside it to build the greater good? It's a choice between optimism and pessimism, and it's a choice we make every single day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.